Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We are in for an exciting conversation about Agile Alliance joining Project Management Institute, or PMI, which was announced earlier on this month. So if you are an Agile or project management professional or enthusiast, this session is for you. Stay with us. This collaboration presumably marks a significant milestone in project management and Agile communities. And I'm quite excited today to be joined by Pierre Le Manh, President and CEO of Project Management Institute, PMI, as well as Song Bac Toh, the Board Chair and PMI Agile Alliance today. And we're going to be talking and having a conversation about this joint venture, if I may call it that way, and answering your questions going forward. Thanks a lot for joining, Pierre and Song.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I appreciate you spending your time and cutting out of your busy schedule, and I think that sends a signal to the community already how important this is to make sure that we raise awareness about why this has happened. May we start by the basic question of, well, some of our audience are either from project management background or they are from Agile, not necessarily both of them. Do you mind, Song, maybe starting with you? Tell us a little bit about what Agile Alliance is all about, maybe in a couple of sentences, if you don't mind.
Certainly, Taghi. Agile Alliance is a global non-profit membership organization founded on the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. And we support people, organizations who explore, apply, expand Agile values, principles, and practices. This was founded as early as 2001.
All right, lovely. Thank you. And Pierre, may I come over to you and ask you to do the same about the PMI?
So maybe it's going to be a little longer. Sorry about that.
Sure.
You know, PMI basically helps solve a simple and essential problem, which is how to make projects successful. And I want to say, especially to our Agile community here, when we talk about projects, think about projects in a very broad sense. You know, the way we define projects at PMI are temporary initiatives that create value, right? Something new, a transformation. And even by temporary, sometimes it's like the whole life cycle of a product, right? So it could be very long, or a succession of transformations that lead there. So we support, of course, project professionals. So in the sense of people whose main activity, professional activity, is to do project work, you know, in the sense that I just described. But we also support businesses across all industries. We support governments. We support NGOs with making both internal and external projects more successful. Right? And we do that through education, certifications, knowledge resources, access to a global community of millions of professionals. We do this through training partners that we have, the whole ecosystem of academic institutions and employers that we put together. Right? So today we are the leading authority in project management. We have about 750,000 members. We're present in over 200 countries. We were founded originally in the US in 1969, but of course started to expand very quickly. Today, over 200 countries. We have millions of certified professionals by PMI, right? So people who are doing project work, mostly who are certified by PMI, who have a professional certification from PMI, millions. We have 800 full-time employees. We have about 13,000 active volunteers measured in the last 12 months, right? So people who have volunteered for us in the last 12 months somewhere worldwide, close to $400 million in revenue. And the services we provide in service of project success are either proprietary e-learning products, accredited programs, a number of professional events, knowledge platforms like our AI-based PMI Infinity, which is a platform to help people do their jobs, online communities, project resources, and of course our globally recognized, universally recognized certifications, including the one that everybody knows, right, the PMP, but we have many other than that. And in the end, we believe that successful projects can really improve the world if they're done in a responsible way. And so we provide responsible practices, we promote responsible practices through global standards, through our thought leadership, through our publications as well. We're also a nonprofit, and we reinvest our surpluses into our mission and social impact, either by making our products more accessible. Many of them are actually free, some of them free for members, some of them free for everybody, and also funding our educational foundation, the PMI Educational Foundation, to teach project management skills especially to underserved communities and high school students. So that's PMI in a nutshell.
Wow. I've already learned a lot about PMI in the last few seconds already. Thank you. And I think you probably have answered a few of questions of our audience as to what a project is and what PMI does for project management. We're going to come back to that in a bit, but the change or the news was announced earlier in January this month. May I ask, what was the purpose of this joint venture? Can you touch upon that reason? So we're starting with the why, if that's okay.
Are you asking me or are you asking Song?
Well, I don't know who wants to take it. I think we need to take two different directions from both sides. Song.
Well, if you're going to follow the order, let me go ahead then. Agile Alliance, right? I mean, Pierre's given a pretty extensive introduction and I think reiteration of PMI's mission and activities and value proposition. Maybe I'll add a bit more too, right? Agile Alliance being, of course, very well known for the once a year annual conference of Agile 20XX. This year will be Agile 2025 in Denver that we host for the community. And there, we encourage and also have people share their learnings and best practices. But what's happening here also, together we work with our members to run initiatives and research projects to advance the practice of Agile. But as the business environment evolves and adoption of Agile matures, we're looking to help our members to take the Agile movement to the next level, to the next phase. And there's also, of course, the economic impact of the COVID and I think conference attendance and other aspects that affect the business environment. So by partnering with PMI, our vision is the movement of Agile and the practice of Agile can be stronger, and we can have a greater community reach, which should help us develop initiative and practices for the next phase of Agile movement. That would include activities such as getting into AI, right? Artificial intelligence, how do we leverage on it? How do we embrace it rather than, just looking at it as what is this going to disrupt what we do? Hopefully that addresses one of the questions. I mean, it's both a reaction as well as a vision from our perspective.
Thanks a lot, Song. I think that I'm personally very optimistic about this. So we've been trying to reach out to the project management professions and professionals, if I may say it that way. And I think that potentially provides now the platform, as Pierre was saying, the platform, connecting the two platforms together, that could be of high potential, right? So to leverage and increase that outreach that you talked about. Pierre, if I may ask, can you connect this joint venture now, if I may call it that way? And we're going to come to that terminology later. What is the right term to use in a second? But can you connect it with us, for us, with your long-term strategy that you have for PMI? How is this joint venture aligns with the long-term vision that you have or the organization has?
So at PMI, we came up with a new strategy last year called PMI Next. And part of the strategy was about really focusing on project success, right? So go beyond, of course, certification learnings. Those are all means to an end, right? Even going beyond our community itself. Like in the end, what matters to the world is what we can deliver, right? So it's more project success and done responsibly, if possible, so that all projects taken together, small ones, big ones, internal, external, contribute to improving our world, right? So as we were expanding our thinking, our vision of what is project work, what is the profession, its role, it's accountability, even thinking of project success beyond project management success, right? So the outcomes, the value that is created more than just being great at doing execution. It led us to think about expanding the content areas that we cover at PMI. And it's not like we're not doing anything before and now we're doing everything that we were not doing before. It's like there were some areas where we felt we might have already had some content but didn't focus a lot on them. So we have a very clear plan to expand in 8 platforms, right? So one of them is AI. AI was actually very negligible 2 or 3 years ago, but now we've put like millions of investments and we have courses and we have a platform. We really are leading the transformation of the AI profession, the project management profession through AI, and also equip project professionals to manage AI transformation projects. So AI is one, sustainability is one, Agile and agility is one as well. It's always been there, at least for the last 10 years, very present at PMI, but we felt, especially in terms of corporate agility, industry agility, there's a lot that can be done and where we can play a role. Change management, product management, social impact, giga projects, the XMOs, you know, those offices, PMOs, etc., transformation offices as well. So those are the 8 platforms where we want to expand our content, our knowledge, create some specific communities, specialized communities, etc. Some of that is being done organically, right? But in some cases, we find other organizations where we feel they are really leading in their space, and having them join PMI would be fantastic, right? So sometimes we do acquisitions like for-profit companies. Sometimes we do integration of non-profit organizations. So for instance, in the last 12 months only, we acquired PMO Global Alliance. We integrated Project Managers Without Borders. We acquired Cognilytica, which is a specialist in AI. They had their own courses, certifications in AI. And now we have the integration of Agile Alliance and more to come to feed all these platforms. You know, we believe very strongly at PMI that Agile principles, values, and practices are truly a natural part of the spectrum of delivery approaches. They are super important in the ways of working. We believe that any decent project professional need to understand at least the foundations of Agile. Otherwise, you would miss a lot, not just about the software development component of any project or almost any project, but even some entire industries are being disrupted with the Agile culture and agility. So it's extremely important for project professionals to master that. And frankly, when we talk about project professionals, we're not always talking about project managers, so people with this title, right? Again, it's about people who do project work in a broad sense for most of their time. So they need to master and embrace all these areas in a decent way, and then learn how to apply them depending on the context, right? You know, in the end, CEOs do not ask about methodologies. They don't care about any of that. They care mildly about principles, but they mostly care about results, right? And that's what we're focused on.
Absolutely, thank you. That's also very interesting. So we want, for this, the purpose of this conversation, idea was to take, based on the questions we've also received from our audience, look at this from 3 different lenses, and you've already covered a couple of these. First lens is about the organization, about the Agile Alliance and PMI. Second one, we're going to talk about members. What would that mean for me as a member of either or both of organizations? And then we go to the third one, which is what you just mentioned here about actually the organizations and clients and people in general who are getting services from both of these organizations, Agile Alliance and PMI. A quick flashback, there has been a mix of reactions and sentiments in the market after this announcement for varying reasons. One of them has been, and a question we've received is about how is Agile Alliance going to be integrated into PMI? Is that the right word even to use, Pierre? Maybe you could touch upon this.
Yeah, because this is, I've heard or read, it's a merger. This is not a merger, and it's even less a JV, right? A joint venture, because a joint venture is like a company that you would create where both sides would own a share, right? So that's not whether 50-50 or a different percentage, but that's not at all what we did here. Agile Alliance remains a separate legal entity with its own membership, its own board of directors, in which all directors are elected by the Agile Alliance membership, except now for the PMI representative, right? That's the only, of course, board member who comes to represent PMI, but also to help this coordination between Agile Alliance and PMI to make sure that things will work more smoothly and we can work on plans together in a more effective way. So the PMI representative for now will be my own chief of staff, Lenket Pinkot, so I'll stay very close to this myself. Now, PMI does appoint the Agile Alliance executive director according to our agreements, but we reappointed Teresa Foster, who was already the executive director before, so no change here. And all Agile Alliance employees are now PMI employees, which provides them also some benefits that they did not necessarily have before. And they are reassigned to support Agile Alliance and manage the day-to-day operations of the organization. Now, of course, PMI will approve important decisions. An example of that would be the budget. And then, based on the agreement we will find, PMI will fund Agile Alliance as needed. There's some integration work that is in progress, right? So we just started now. Teresa Foster, the executive director of Agile Alliance, now also a PMI employee, is in charge with coming up with this plan. Of course, she has a lot of support from the PMI executive team and from the Agile Alliance board to get this done.
Thank you very much for clarifying this, Pierre. So I'd like to reiterate for our viewers and listeners again. So Agile Alliance remains, as I understand, again, you need to correct me, as I understand, Agile Alliance remains as it was before, a legal, on its own legal entity with the same mission and vision and structure and membership like before. Is that correct, Pierre? And
yeah, with the of course, caveat that PMI is now has to approve the important decisions and appoints the executive director.
Sure. Okay, thanks a lot.
That's why I'm talking about integration, not merger, because it's not a merger, it's still two different entities. But of course, now Agile Alliance has joined the broader PMI family.
Thank you. Maybe a question for you, Song. I am a member of Agile Alliance. What would that entail for me? Would I need to expect any changes? Would I get any additional benefits? And then we're going to have the same question maybe for Pierre on the PMI side, for PMI members.
I think for the member, as far as the benefit that Agile Alliance offer thus far, those remain. And as we are working through this integration and partnership, we are working on how we can expand that, both in terms of research and content and probably networking opportunity as well. I mean, certainly it's a larger community that have reasons to be linked together. But I mean, Agile Alliance has always been a big tent organization, non-sectarian. So there are folks who are not even directly members and not directly practicing Agile who can benefit from what we do, and we invite folks to come in. So more to come, really, what we can do. But I would encourage members, especially Agile Alliance members, to suggest initiative where they can further expand this community and build on top of what we have in both cases. Because as a relatively small organization, Agile Alliance cannot be telling you, the community, what to do. We would like to help you build your professional lives and expand the practice of Agile.
Okay, Song, thank you. So the two prominent services and flagship offerings of Agile Alliance have been the conference, the annual conference that we've had, and as well the initiatives, which were rather created by members and supported by the Alliance. Are they going to stay the same as they were before?
Absolutely. And I definitely also want to invite, especially if this audience has a lot of PMI folks, come, and if you can, join our conference that will be in Denver this year in July. Right? The invitation is open, and certainly please consider registering and joining the conference.
Thank you, everyone. Agile 2025 Denver this year. Pierre, how about me as a PMI member? What would that mean for me? And I think that's probably a longer story here to address.
No, I mean, so first of all, we have to respect the fact that if we keep two different entities, and that's the choice we've made, because frankly, PMI wants Agile Alliance to be a successful organization, right? So we hope that by leveraging our platform, Agile Alliance can find a new momentum, right? So more growth, new ideas, leverage some of the content and ideas that we have at PMI, and maybe, for instance, in AI, right? So there's the AI transformation of the project professionals or the project profession affects Agile specialists as well, right? It's the same thing. So maybe not exactly the same, but a lot of things are the same. So all that can be leveraged for sure. Now, when we speak about conferences, yes, of course, we want to keep the Agile Alliance conference. We can think also about having Agile Alliance participate to some of the other events that PMI has. And we have, overall, including our chapters, we're talking about hundreds of events every year, and not only small events. Even at the local level, our chapters organize events sometimes of 800, 1,000 people or even more. And of course, our global PMI global managed events are even larger than that, like several thousands of attendees. So having the Agile Alliance content, thought leadership, some of the volunteers be involved in our global conferences as well would be fantastic. As a PMI member, what I would look like, and I'm a member myself, right? Of course, not maybe totally neutral, but if I look at the broader vision we have, right? All the efforts we're doing at PMI, our expansion in all these content areas, the growth we're seeing, the impact we're having, this is one of the components of our strategy, right? And so if I look at this and I look at this movement with the integration of Agile Alliance, I can see the story and why we're doing that, and it makes me feel even more confident about the ability of PMI to be relevant going forward and useful to the profession, and make the profession also relevant and useful to the world.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to, and that's been one of the primary reasons to bring these two communities together a bit closer. I think conferences could play a role, because it has rather been, to some extent, for some people, it has been either or. So I'm either in this conference or the other one, but why not combining them one way or another, or at least encourage?
We could combine, but I think we really want the Agile community to remain a specific community within the broader project management world and family or project profession. It's not exclusive, right? So, for instance, about 40% of the Agile Alliance members are also PMI members, right? So it's not completely either or, even from a membership perspective. And we ideally want Agile in itself to be a discipline that has its own ideas, innovation, right, and contribute to the whole, right? It's not about merging everything, right? It doesn't work that way. It is about nurturing diversity and diversity of thinking and ideas, and by exchanging, getting everyone a little better and smarter.
Right. Absolutely. And I think when it comes to Agile Alliance, there is a lot more interest, if I may put it that way, than just the members of Agile Alliance. Because Agile Alliance, how many members do we have, by the way, Song, if you have it on the top of your head?
I mean, our numbers, certainly, there are a lot of people who are involved in the practice of Agile, and what we have seen is 60-some thousand people, as we said on the website, but directly registered members is a slightly different number, and we certainly continue to evolve that because we want to grow our membership, right? Adding our value proposition. We talk a lot about conferences, but I appreciate that not everybody can take the time to actually travel to some place and attend a conference. That's why the online community, the online events and initiative, I think, is a very important part of just being in the community. If in your area there are certain activities that are very interesting, you can start that and encourage folks from other regions to join. I mean, we have pretty active affiliates in New Zealand and Brazil, for example, under Agile Alliance. They are connected, but they're not really, managed or quote-unquote controlled from Agile Alliance Central. So we would like to see communities thrive and taking initiative to start new ideas and share it back so we can have a richer community overall.
Thank you very much. Now, another question we have received, which is kind of related to that third lens of looking at it from the industry perspective, not just the two companies and their members. The question is, this joining, how is that going to impact the industry at large? I'm aware of the fact that the shift from predictive way of working, transactional, over to more empirical and adaptive has started quite a long time back with PMI, so it's nothing new. But what would this mean now for me as a company trying to apply project management at large in the things we do?
So first of all, it would. I don't think we should say, I would agree saying that there's a shift. I think PMI has embraced a broad array of approaches and methods for some time. And by the way, when we decided, and that's way before my time, we decided to increase the understanding by project professionals at large of agile and adaptive approaches, right? And the agile principles and values and all of that. We actually did not try to do this from scratch, right? And in fact, we partnered with, guess whom? Agile Alliance, to develop our Agile Practice Guide, which then formed the foundation of, on one side, our Agile certification. So we have an Agile certification at PMI, and it's going to stay the same, called PMI ACP, Agile Practitioner. And then I think it's Agile Certified Professional, to be precise, or practitioners, one of the two, sorry, I forgot. It doesn't matter, it's ACP, right? We love acronyms. So it helped doing that, but it also became more embedded in even something like the PMBOK. Some of you might know the PMBOK, which is well, in fact, it's a shortened name for what is actually practically the PMBOK guide and standard for project management, right? So it's a long sentence or succession of words. So the PMBOK actually moved to embrace adaptive methods in a very big way with the current version, right? The PMBOK 7. The new one coming soon, the 8, is even going further in that direction, right? As now we're under the same tent, right? So definitely PMI is also principle-based, absolutely not method. It's completely method agnostic and framework agnostic. So we're not, promoting any framework in particular, but we want all project professionals to understand all of them, right? At least have a foundational knowledge of all of them. So now that Agile Alliance has joined very formally PMI, it will be even more so. But it's very important to understand that we also expect project professionals to have the maturity and the knowledge and the level of expertise to adapt to the context of their own projects. This morning again, I had the chief engineering officer of a large utility company writing me and say, can we get rid of all the agile stuff in what we learn? Because frankly, for what we do, we don't need it. And I was answering him, I don't think you don't need it. It's actually not true. Your project professionals need to understand all of that. See, the space exploration industry in the US was completely disrupted based on agile principles. It may not be Scrum, okay, I mean, maybe for the software component. By the way, there's always a software component, so it's always good to know that. But for the rest, those principles actually had a massive positive impact on innovation, lowering cost, and frankly, in a way, is saving or reviving the space exploration industry in the US. So it's, I think, a wrong assumption to believe that some projects only require people to manage them that have no clue about other approaches than what they call waterfall. Sometimes we never talk about waterfall, we talk about predictive. So it's, we're hopefully we are going to make our project professionals more knowledgeable in many areas. And again, I listed 8 content areas. Those apply to everyone. All Agilists need to understand AI, need to understand sustainability, need to understand change management. All of that matters. Even social impact, many of them, especially in the younger generations, are very interested in knowing how they can apply their day-to-day activity or what they could do in their day-to-day jobs and lives to have some positive social impact. So that's our ambition, and that's what we want to accomplish.
Thanks for sharing that, Pierre. That's very eye-opening. And again, I encourage also maybe my peers to explore more if they don't know already about PMI and project management. With the 7th version of PMBOK, there has been some good introduction of what we like to call agile mindset. So go and explore, because that's very interesting. And the 8th one is coming out, I think, very soon. Is it, Pierre? Okay. And
we're currently in this open consultation phase, right? So there's a phase, because people believe that PMI writes the PMBOK guide. It's not true, or the standard. It's not exactly like that. We do foster a system where we have volunteers who are selected, and there's a writing team, and then there's an editing team, and then we open to the public twice, right? So that they can contribute, make their comments. Of course, you will have all sorts of comments. They're not all aligned, right? So then a decision has to be made on what do we actually do in the end, so it makes sense. But that's the way it works. It's the profession guiding all of that under our leadership, right? That's the way it works. And yes, sometimes I hear, and it's a little shocking for people who know the current PMI or the PMI in the last 10 years, that PMI is about processes, Agile is about people. This doesn't make any sense. If you read the PMI content, it's a lot about people. Even some people say so much about people that we forget a bit about business, and we forget a little bit about execution as well, right? So we have to find the right balance, but it's totally not true. Servant leadership is promoted by PMI in the same way as Agile Alliance does.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm going to read from my notes for a second, just because that was enlightening to me. On the 7th version, which has become principle-based rather than process-based, there are 12 principles, but they're not the Agile principles. However, there are a few of them which are really nice to have and to see. Like focus on value is one of them. Navigating complexity, which is very close to what we admire and what we preach. So that's very eye-opening and very promising at the same time. And hopefully this joint effort is going to maybe boost that even further on in the next versions.
In the next version of PMBOK 8, the current draft has regrouped some of those principles, because we found it that sometimes hard for people to remember them. So at one point we need to stabilize. But yes, definitely Agile, and the work that we've been doing with Agile Alliance for a number of years has actually influenced that. It's a good example of how you can take the best and try to so we move to principles so that people get the point that they need to understand all of that, and then how they actually work is left to them to decide based on their context of their projects, the culture of the companies they work for, or clients, and the nature of the project. When you build a dam, obviously some components can be done in a very agile way. The design phase, probably the software components. Others need to be more predictive, for obvious reasons, right? So a proper project professional needs to understand all of that.
Thank you. There has been a question which has been highly debated and discussed, and I want to put that forward here again for you, Pierre, and maybe Song can chime in later and provide his thoughts there as well. The question reads, does PMI have any plans to offer new certifications, in particular Scrum certifications?
No, because we're method agnostic. At one point, we had this idea: should we vet the market because it's full of bad actors, and should we be in a way should we accredit or provide accreditation for certain certifications, not necessarily done by us, right? But we feel the market can self-regulate, and it's probably not. Like, we have other more important things to do. So no, we do not have any plans like that. Like I said, we have PMI ACP already. We do have courses. So by the way, at PMI, we make a very clear distinction between professional certifications and then certificates of completions of a course, right? It's two different things. And we have established very strict standards that any professional certification, at least from PMI, has to abide by, including having a standard that it's backed on a guide, having proper training ecosystem with accreditations of the right training providers and all of that. So this is what we do at PMI, and then we have our learning courses. Will we have new learning courses? Well, we evolve this all the time, right, as we expand, and we'd be delighted to, for instance, I don't know, have a specific AI course for Agile coaches. That may make sense. Maybe some of the content will be the same, maybe it's going to be more specific. Those are ideas we can definitely work on.
All right. But to summarize, at least at the moment, there is no plan to offer any new certifications.
There is definitely no plans. That's absolutely not the reason why we're making this movement, and we've said it, and we really have no plans, not even any ideas and any concept. We don't see the benefit. Now, if someone has different views and wants to explain to us why we should, we'd be happy to take a look at that and discuss it. But right now, no.
Sure. And probably also not because of Agile Alliance, because one of the core values of Agile Alliance and why it has stayed the way it has been the fact that we wanted to stay out of certification.
Correct. Yeah, Agile Alliance does not offer certifications, and we also do not endorse any particular certifications. That said, right, our community, our sponsors offer courses, training, and certifications, but this is what the big tent mean. There are different practices for Agile, different frameworks and methodology, and let all the flowers bloom. And as Pierre said, let the market self-regulate, because we believe at the end of the day, whatever that deliver results would be what would thrive, right?
Yeah, our PMI ACP certification, by the way, is not, it's completely methodology agnostic. It's precisely, and again, based on a lot of Agile Alliance content and ideas that we've embraced at PMI as we were partnering. And by the way, a number of Agile Alliance volunteers or senior volunteers actually participated to develop this PMI ACP certification. So if we do believe in certifications, in the value it creates. It's worked really well for PMI, to be honest. And I think it's also enabled us to fund so many things that are important to the profession as well, right? So, but we are methodology agnostic. If you take PMI ACP, you're not going to learn Scrum in particular or DevOps or whatever, right? You're going to have a very broad understanding of the principles, the values, the different methods that exist. We do encourage people to take a Scale Safe Agile certification if that makes sense for them. We're not competing with this world.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, PMI has had, as you mentioned yourself, Pierre, has had in the past other acquisitions, although this one we said that we're not going to call it acquisition, but
integrations, right? So some of them acquisitions, if they're, it depends.
Right. Is there any particular risk or concern that you could highlight at the moment about this integration going forward, be it about the integration itself or be it about the communities?
So again, like I said, we've worked with Agile Alliance for many years, right? So we know each other pretty well. I think at least one typical obstacle won't happen is when you have different tenets, right? So like if you're really in disagreement on the tenets, on the basic principles and values, then it's going to be very difficult. And in our case, I think the reason why we were so interested in helping Agile Alliance be successful and thrive is because we believe in what Agile Alliance has been doing, and we very strongly align with their view of the world and how it can really contribute positively. So like I said many times, the world is better with Agile Alliance. So I think from that standpoint, we'll be fine. And I don't think the Agile Alliance board, for instance, when discussing with us, had any concern about what we profess or what we believe in at PMI. You know, they might have some concerns about other things, but definitely not that. Like I mentioned as well, 40% of the Agile Alliance members, right? So the people who pay membership are also PMI members. Of course, not true. The reverse is not true because we have much more members at PMI. I mean, it would be great if it could become true over time, but for now it's not true. But it also shows that there is, you know, a good understanding, of course, as well from the members, right, or many of them, of both organizations and what they can bring. For us at PMI, you know, this is the 5th integration in 12 months. Like I mentioned some of them before. So we have fairly fresh experience. Of course, all situations are different. You know, when you acquire an organization like a company like Cognilytica, what they do, courses, learning, podcasts, you know, they don't have a membership, for instance. So it's very different than a situation like Project Managers Without Border, which is something that we need to grow and develop with our chapters, or Agile Alliance, which is a very established organization in its area with members and a board, you know, so it's always a little different, and we adjust to that. But we do have an MO, right? So a way to integrate organizations that we built, especially in the last 12 months, and I hope it's going to work fairly well. You know, the risk I see is more an opportunity risk. The Agile community now has, I think, a fantastic platform, right, with PMI to expand globally, expand to more sectors, influence millions of project professionals beyond themselves, right, and benefit as well from what PMI has to offer, like in AI. So if there is no openness from the Agile community, there's going to be like a missed opportunity, in my opinion. For us, PMI, that's not a real risk, but I see an opportunity risk as a risk as well, right? And I really believe there's a lot we could do, could be very beneficial for the Agile Alliance members and for Agile Alliance as an organization. So I hope we will be able to leverage all of that. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be fine. It won't affect the future of PMI for sure, but it would be sad. And that's why I'm really asking you to be open-minded and try to make the best of it.
Thank you. Song, did you want to add anything?
I do want to echo what Pierre said. I think you've heard both of us said a lot of the same words, same things, maybe using different words. In terms of objective and principles, both organizations are very much focused on enabling the community. And Agile Alliance will remain Agile Alliance. The principles remain the same, the identity, I think how we operate is still the same, but the opportunity of how to leverage on this partnership and alliance and this integration to do more, expand the community, offer more value to the community is definitely there. And let's not, I think, lose that, because if you spend all the time just being too introspective, then we will lose the opportunity to grow. And I encourage, especially Agile Alliance community, reach out, propose initiatives, bring ideas, and reach out to PMI, and also to see what can we do together.
Absolutely. Imagine what the two communities now could do, right? The synergies are enormous, and potential is high. Kind of a shift of focus to a topic that is dear to my heart, actually, and also the source of some of the confusions we've had within the two communities in the past. The word project. Okay, so the question in explicit is there any plan to also promote product management as a discipline and as a practice, especially the empirical way of tackling the challenge of developing products for PMI?
Yeah, but product management is not opposed to project management, right? We first of all, in some industries like the tech industry, it's very blurred, the difference between both, right? Because we know that product management is a succession of incremental improvement in the product, so that can be seen as a succession of projects. We are actually including product managers in our sizing of the profession worldwide, right? We will publish this very soon. You will see like about 10% of project people are actually product managers worldwide. We have actually started some work to understand the commonalities, the differences, what is it in the product management world that did not exist or was not really emphasized in the project management world. We found that about 60% is basically the same, and then you got some sides of product management, like in particular understanding consumers, and all that kind of stuff, where it's overemphasized in product management compared to project management. And of course, the life cycles are not the same, which may be seen as a detail, in fact. So there are a lot of complements, a lot of overlaps. And I mentioned before the 8 platforms of PMI, right? The content platforms where we want to expand, and product management is actually one of them. This is not one where we've made the most progress, to be honest, because, just a matter of opportunities and things we've been focused on a lot on AI, now Agile, social impact, and things like that. The PMOs with the acquisition of PMO-GA, where we're structuring this sub-community now across the world. So it's just a matter of not a matter of priorities, but just a matter of how much we can take on at the same time. I know that the Agile Alliance, and Song will talk about that, they have their own initiative around product, and I'm thinking that probably what we want to do is to merge these initiatives, maybe have Agile Alliance lead it, but maybe also find on our side, on the PMI side, ways to resource it more and accelerate the development of this thinking, and maybe make some moves in that space as well.
Thank you. Very promising again. Song, over to you. I'm aware of the initiative on the Agile Alliance side, but maybe for our audience, if you want to have a couple of words before we close.
Yeah, we have actually, relaunched the product management initiative that's member-led. And because ultimately, I think a lot of the Agile projects and Agile initiatives and are all fed towards like building products, maintaining products, and running products. So product management is a very important function in the practice of Agile. And of course, you also have the division of labor of the Agile roles, and then you have the product owner role and product manager role, myself being a product management person. And so we see certainly renewed activity in this area. I think is very valuable if there's interest on the PMI side too, to see how we can link forces. Because ultimately, maybe speaking for myself, product managers got the P&L of the business. The CEO, of course, got the P&L for the entire enterprise. And a lot of these activities, whether it's development, QA, releases, or completing even, say, a construction project, comes down to how do you deliver revenue through the product and the services that you're offering to the customer. So it's a valuable opportunity for us to consider working together.
If you think about what it means being accountable for project success beyond project management success, a lot of this thinking around that, managing the perception of stakeholders, the product market fit, all these things are very much aligned with this expansion into the product management world. And the frontier is getting more blurred. So it's very important, I think, that we are focused on that and we make progress.
Absolutely. This is a topic in this industry which needs attention from my personal perspective. But it's very promising and very good to hear that both PMI and Agile Alliance have had some sort of initiative going on already. And maybe by joining forces, they would be able to take the first few steps. So before we close, what is that one thing that you may want to communicate with the two communities through this platform? Is there something you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, one thing that I want to communicate beyond what I've already said, right? Let's not miss this opportunity, but I'm hearing sometimes that there are distinct cultures and missions between PMI and Agile Alliance because there are distinct cultures and missions between project professionals and agilists. I think we got to be very careful with this. I don't think the mission is that different. You know, and when it comes to culture, I remember I started my career at Accenture. At the time, Accenture was a very monolithic kind of company, right? Our slogan was one firm, one voice, right? And the advertising was a school of fish, right? So they were all moving in the same direction at the same time, you know, as like school of fishes do, right? And so it's interesting because if you take Accenture today, it's completely different, right? It's absorbed advertising agencies. It's completely, the people, I used to be dressed exactly the same as every single other employees at Accenture, and I actually still kind of dress the same today sometimes. But today, Accenture doesn't look like that either, right? And the same is true for PMI. You know, it has changed a lot, and will continue to change. Of course, if you look at PMI and think about it as it was in 1995, now to speak of 1969, it's probably different, but it will continue to change because the world is changing. And one very fundamental pillar of that transformation of PMI is diversity. Diversity is very important to me, even on a personal level. You know, I'm Asian by heritage, I'm European by culture, I'm American by choice. And I really fully understand the importance of diversity and what it brings to you personally as an individual, but also to your community. At PMI, we don't want to eradicate differences. We want to leverage differences. We believe that having people thinking differently is very important to the collective good, right? Now, of course, we want to have the same guiding star. We want to have the same principles, values that we want to drive, right? And we want to be focused on results in the end and on the value we can bring to the world. But these differences are super important. So let's not be scared about them. Let's think about how we can leverage them as effectively as possible to the benefit of all of us.
Thank you very much. As you said earlier, an opportunity for every one of us and of course for the community at large. Song, how about you?
Yeah, a lot of the things that we talked about, opportunity is there, and certainly one thing I do like to reiterate, I mean, there are some I've heard some concerns that or questions of what would Agile Alliance do differently. And I think Agile Alliance will do things differently if the members want to do things differently. And if you want to start something different, something new, please start it. And we will help amplify, because if it gets traction, right, other members say, that is exactly what I need. We will invest in it. We will bring in our community members, our partners, including PMI, to see how we can help that. But really, Agile Alliance, especially being a relatively small volunteer-driven organization, isn't sitting there and thinking that the next thing we do is change the world. We aren't even paid to do that, right? Because most of us are volunteers except for a pretty small staff led by Teresa Foster, who's our managing director, right?
Well, welcoming and embracing change. I think that was the motto today. Thanks a lot for your time, Pierre and Song. It was very enlightening. I know you've been very busy these days also with the integrations, but we really appreciate that. Hopefully our conversation has helped some of us in both communities to get the answer to some of their questions. Thanks a lot one more time, and till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.